Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Florida, Walt Harris versus Alistair Overeem, and Shaq, it's going down tonight in Jacksonville, Florida. Two heavyweights in the main event. Walt Harris looking to come out with a triumphant return.
Yeah, Walt Harris, we know the unfortunate, tragedy that he had in his family, and all our prayers went out to him. And I like how the MMA community gathered together, to wish Walt, the best during a tough time. And I'm glad to see him back in the cage where he belongs. Before that incident, I mean, he was on quite the roll, knocking out Alexei in 12 seconds. Putting beat downs on Sergey Spivak. Beating Andrei Arlovsky. And Overeem's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He's got wins over Verdum. I know he's been knocked out how many times, but the guy's still a legend. He's still probably the richest heavyweight on the roster, and Overeem's always in for a good fight, man.
Let's just say his purse won't be affected if he gets knocked out in this fight. So I'm very much looking forward to what takes place tonight in Jacksonville, Florida. And before we break down this card start to finish, just got to let y'all know to go to bestfightpicks.com and hit us up for our bets. Use that promo code SHAQ50 for 50% off Shaq's bets. Use my promo code Dan25 for 25% off mine. Or if you want both our plays, hit up the VIP packages with the promo code 2020 for 20% off. Well, Shaq, let's get right down to business because first up in the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Dontayle, he's 7-3, and Rodrigo Nascimento is 7-0. Currently, they got Rodrigo Nascimento minus 110. The comeback on Dontayle is plus 100. Well, Shaq, I got to give Dontayle a lot of credit. He's come a long way since Snoop Dogg famously said he wasn't invited to the gang fight back when he fought Alan Crowder. Since that point, he made a second appearance on Contender Series, won by first-round knockout, and then he had to fight, Cyril Gane, one of the top heavyweight prospects in his UFC debut. So no matter what happens, this is a step down on paper, but do you think he'll be able to deal with the jiu-jitsu brown belt of Rodrigo Nascimento?
Interesting fight because, like you said, Mays, his first fight with Crowder, I mean, it was ugly. I mean, he got his ass beat. He gassed out by the end of the first round, and, he went on to beat Kamaru Usman's brother on the local scene. That's a solid win at heavyweight. And then he came back, beat a 22-year-old heavyweight, and pretty, it was a better performance than the first time. And then the third time against that 6'7" guy, I mean, he put him down unconscious, man. So he definitely is getting better. He's 6'6". He's at the heavyweight limit. He's kind of got a different style. He likes to spin. He likes to, be a little dynamic in there. But this guy Nascimento, man, it seems like he's well equipped on the ground. He seems like he knows where his skills lie. That fight on the Contender Series, I mean, let's be honest here, it was against a bum, so we really don't know the full capabilities of what the guy's really got. But, Mays on the mat is a little sketchy, man. But the thing with Mays is, man, that fight with Cyril Gane, it could have been a possible eye-opener. I mean, Cyril Gane, that guy he might not be a French fraud, That guy might be the next heavyweight champion, one of these days. I think Mays might possibly come in a little better. He just got a super eye-opening experience, or maybe he got the shit beat out of him to a point so that he'll never be the same. But I think Mays should be the favorite here just because we know more about him. I think he's got better physical attributes. He is training with John Jones. I'll go with Mays for the win. It's not a very confident pick just because I do have maybe a small suspicion that the kid, if Nascimento gets on top of him, that, maybe Nascimento can get a sub, but I have to pick Mays just because I know more about him. And he is somewhat developing, and I think he got an eye-opener against Cyril Gane.
Yeah, look, Mays is definitely seeing a higher level of competition. I mean, when you talk about Nascimento, in his Contender Series fight, his opponent went for a head and arm throw. I mean, like, when you have heavyweight males going for head and arm throws, that just tells you the level right there. And he got on top as a result of that failed head and arm throw, and he submitted the guy. So that's basically all the footage there is of him. And then there's a fight from 2012 or some shit. So, it's really tough to tell. But the good news for him is that he trains at ATT. He's got a good camp behind him, good people behind him. He's allegedly a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. The times I've seen him on top, seems like he knows what he's doing. So with Dontayle, I'm not sure if he's got a karate background, a taekwondo, kung fu, something along those lines, but he definitely has an unorthodox striking style. Kind of worries me, though, because for a man that big to be bouncing the way he does, he's definitely going to gas himself out. And then you've seen on the mat, it's super suspect. So I really don't know which way to lean, but since I think one guy has a big advantage on the mat, I'll lean with Rodrigo Nascimento, but no confidence in this pick, gentlemen. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Courtney Casey, she's 8-7, and Mara Romero Borella is 12-7. Currently, they got Courtney Casey minus 155. The comeback on Mara Romero Borella is plus 145. Well, Shaq, it's an interesting fight for a couple reasons because Courtney Casey has been taken down 19 times in UFC competition, and Mara Romero Borella scored a takedown in every single UFC fight she's had. But when you look past the stats, Courtney Casey is the far tougher fighter. And Mara Romero Borella, honestly, if you go back and watch those regional fights, she got knocked out cold 3 times in a row. And ever since that point, she hasn't been the same. The reason she got to the UFC was because she won that Invicta belt. But when you look at the competition she was in there with, it was almost like a foregone conclusion that she was going to go in there and beat Milana Dudieva. You remember Milana Dudieva, Shaq? And she beat her by split, so it could have gone either way. But bottom line, that's how she got to the UFC. I think Mara Romero Borella is not only lacking in the chin department, but is lacking in the confidence department. And if she can't get on top of Courtney Casey for extended periods of time, she's not going to win this fight. And not only that, even if she does, I could see Courtney Casey attacking off her back with arm bars. It's just a situation where Courtney Casey is the far superior fighter. It's just she does dumb shit. Like she gives up way too many takedowns too easily. And then, for example, that Felice Herrig fight, it's 50-50 in the third round. And instead of fighting, they're flicking each other off, with a minute left. So I question the fight IQ, but at the end of the day, I think Courtney Casey is the superior fighter and the tougher fighter. So I'll pick her for that reason, Shaq.
Yeah, I mean, Mara Borella, she's been KO'd, I think 5 times maybe. She got dropped her last fight against a grappler. So I think there's a good chance the end is near with Mara Borella. She had a couple good wins, 2 wins. But like you said, man, Casey has been unreliable throughout her whole career. She's 4-6 in the UFC. She's I don't want to say an habitual stunt puller, but it's just I know you remember that Jessica Aguilar fight back in the day where she got taken down like 100 million times. Fortunately for her, Aguilar's a complete punching bag, so she was able to still get the win. But like you said, man, that takedown defense is sketchy. It kind of looked a little improved against Calvillo, but Calvillo was kind of suffering from the calf kicks. So, I agree. I'm going to take Casey for the win here. I think Mara Borella's heart's not in it. I think she's lost all confidence. And I think that her chin, ever since that Lauren Murphy vicious knockout, you saw how she came back for her return. It was even worse. So I think it's probably Casey probably gives up a couple early takedowns, but at some point she'll probably land a big shot here and the tide will turn and, she'll get a win. But, man, Casey's something else, man, because she's moving up a weight class for this fight, and I know she made weight today, but she didn't necessarily look the best on the scales either, man. She needed that hoop, but not saying that it matters. But this girl is flaky to me, man. So I'll take her for the win, but I think both are flakes.
Yeah, if an 8-7 record is any indication, she's definitely a flake. And it's funny because that Mara Romero Borella fight versus Tyler Santos was more about what Tyler Santos did wrong than what Mara Romero did right. So I can't wait to see what happens in this fight. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Darren the Damage Elkins, he's 24-8, and Nate the Train Landwehr is 13-3. Currently, they got Darren Elkins minus 120. The comeback on Nate Landwehr is plus 110. Shaq, it's an interesting matchup because look, I actually went out there and successfully faded both these gentlemen in their last fights at dog money, bet on Ryan Hall, bet on Herbert Burns, and this is an interesting matchup because obviously Darren Elkins, his name, The Damage, he's known for taking all that damage, but the thing about that style is once your durability goes, what's he got left, man? I know his wrestling is on point, but the thing is he's known for taking that ass whooping up front and coming back. And in that last fight, people are going to say that Ryan Hall's got this unique style. I 100% agree, but it's not like Ryan Hall went out there and heel hooked the guy. If he heel hooked the guy, I completely understand. Ryan Hall was out there dropping him with punches, Shaq. So I think we're at a point now where it's not going to take much to come out here and beat him. It's just a matter of not getting taken down and laid on for extended periods of time. And look, I think this is going to be a back and forth fight. And the bookies actually open Landwehr a minus 175 favorite in the spot. All the public took the action on Elkins at dog money, flipped the line. And look, there is a chance that Elkins get those takedowns, but from what I've seen from Landwehr on his regional footage, which was, by the way, in Russia, he's the M1 champion, he does get taken down, but he seems to scramble back up to his feet every time. Even in the UFC debut, when he was caught in that deep Darce choke against Herbert Burns, most people are going to sleep or tap in. He was able to scramble up to his feet, and it seemed like that was going to be his moment to come back. Unfortunately, got caught with a big knee. It was what it was. I think that this is going to be an interesting back and forth fight, and I think that Nate Landwehr is going to put it on Darren Elkins and get his first UFC win here. So I'm actually rolling with Nate the Train on this one, Shaq.
Yeah, I think Father Time's caught up with Elkins. I think he had a great run, man. But I think, when the whole MO of your game is the damage, and you got the damage tattoo on your chest, and your whole game is based on letting these guys dump their energy tank, and you coming back in a late win. And when we look at his win streak, man, when he was when he moved to alpha male, and he he went on, he rejuvenated his career. He beat Chad Skelly. Me and you both know there were some behind the scene things going on, and then he beat Mirsad Bektik in a fight where, he was getting completely mollywopped and taken down, dropped, beat up. We know that Mirsad is a little mentally challenged, and then the fight with Dennis Bermudez, who's, kind of washed up at the time, and, that was a split decision. And the Michael Johnson fight where, if you didn't learn this a couple of days ago, like I said, you never know what Michael Johnson is going to do. So, I think Elkins had a good run, but like I said, when your MO is the damage, when that's what your game is based on, and you can't take the damage anymore. Let's just be honest here. When Ricardo Lamas is out here looking like a K1 striker against you, and when Ricardo Lamas is looking like a legit top 10 guy against you, I think it might be damn near time to hang him up, man, and then you come back, like you said, against Ryan Hall, who's a leg lock jiu-jitsu guy, a flopper, and this guy's, dropping you and hurting you. I think that the end is near for Elkins. Now, I'm not saying that Nate the Train is some world beater or anything, but I think he's going to be very, very hungry coming into the spot, because let's not forget, this guy had a lot of hype coming into the UFC, was the favorite against Herbert Burns. Things didn't go his way. He got embarrassed. A lot of times, these kids, they screw up in their debut and they come back better, a lot better the second time. And this is a fight he asked for, man. And he's had this fight on the horizons. Not saying that it means anything, but I think he's the younger, fresher version of Darren Elkins. And the fact that he's dog money, I think it's a good sign. I think he knocks Darren Elkins out. And I hate to see Darren in a spot like this, but let's think about these horrendous beatings. It all started with the Mirsad Bektik fight. Now, of course, it was great. He got the win, but think about how much damage he took to the dome that night, bro. And then what about that Volkanovski fight? There were times where he was hitting the deck, and if Volkanovski, that was actually one of his worst performances in the UFC, in my opinion, because he was trying to kill Elkins instead of doing what he typically does, which is feign and pick the shots. And when Volkanovski, a guy like that, gets clean chin shots on you like that, he's gonna wreck that chin forever. And then Lamas. I think Elkins has had a great run, but I think Father Time is catching up with him, so I'm going to go with Nate Landwehr.
Now, also in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Giga Chikadze, he's 9-2, and Irwin Rivera is 9-4. Currently, they got Giga Chikadze minus 350. The comeback on Irwin Rivera is plus 290. Well, Shaq, look, I like this kid Irwin Rivera. He's tough. He's a Mexican warrior. He comes in there with that spirit. The kid looks to throw down. He's got some decent experience. Went the distance with Steven Peterson. Even knocked out Lazar Stojadinovic, who at one point was on a little run. Could have got the UFC call. Unfortunately, lost that fight to Ton Lee and then lost to this kid, Irwin Rivera, as well. I like the kid a lot. It's just that, taking a UFC short notice call on 2 days up a weight class, he's going to be massively outsized. And while he does have some skills, Chikadze's got a weakness on the mat. Maybe this kid will look to take it there. I just don't know what kind of shape he's in. And it'll be a serious upset if he pulls this off. I don't see it happening. I think this is going to be Giga Chikadze's first knockout win in the UFC. And I think it's going to be via the Giga kick. And if people don't know about that Giga kick, it's like it's like a baseball bat, man. The crack, you cringe when you hear the sound of that Giga kick. It's like remember when David Justice used to play on the Braves and he'd hit those home runs with that beautiful swing? It sounds like that when Giga Chikadze gets off on that liver kick, and I think he's gonna knock this kid out, Shaq.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think Giga Chikadze, since his Austin Springer performance, has made tons of improvements. You know, he got that debut against Brandon Davis, won those first 2 rounds with his dynamic kickboxing. It seems like he's, still trying to figure out his footing, just his niche in the cage. You got to remember this guy was fighting complete cans on his local scene in that Gladiator challenge. So he's still not fully used to fighting, good opponents. He's still got so much more to go. I think his ceiling is really high look at his last fight against Jamal Emmers. A lot of people bet Emmers, saying that, he was going to capitalize on the wrestling, and Giga Chikadze actually swept Emmers, man. Those private lessons are paying off with Dariush. I think he comes out here and stops Irwin Rivera. Irwin Rivera is a tough guy from Hard Knocks 365, but short notice against a glory striker, and it ain't no just. I've made some jokes in the past about some of these glory strikers, like, no offense to Roberson, but like a Roberson level glory striker. I mean, Brian Foster fought in glory too, right? This is a real glory striker, man. This is a guy that actually won championships in glory. So, I think Giga Chikadze comes out here and knocks him out in the first round.
Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Kevin Holland, he's 16-5, and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is 7-1. Currently, they got Anthony Hernandez -110 and Kevin Holland is +100. So Shaq, this line is flipped. It initially opened a pick'em with a slight lean on Holland. Now the slight lean is on Hernandez. It's an interesting matchup. Two very talented prospects. Who you think gets another UFC win?
Yeah, it's a tough fight, man. Both Hernandez, he only has a very few amount of fights, but he's made it a long way in that short amount of time. He's got vicious power in his hands. He's got a good little choke game that he likes to go to. Beat Brendan Allen on the local scene. Dominated him. Came out there. He got finished by Maluco in his debut in Brazil. Tough situation for him. But then he comes back, fights that dude Park on Chinese turf. I mean, he had to make a flight all the way over there when a lot of the Americans didn't look too good that night. And he found a way to get his job done, man. So I like Fluffy Hernandez. I think he's got a lot more to go. Holland, I've always liked Kevin Holland, man. I've known about Kevin Holland for a long time, since his Bellator days. It just seems that when he's super talented, he's got wins over guys like GM3 and Rico. So on paper, it's like this guy's resume, I don't want to say shits on Hernandez's, but he's beaten guys like GM3 like that. That's what he's capable of. So, Kevin's biggest problem is himself. He talks a lot, he plays a lot of games, and all of his performances, he's had flashes of, this great jiu-jitsu ability, this long jab, but it kind of feels like when the fight gets dirty that he kind of shies away from it, man. I was there in Greenville against Rico. Now he was able to get the win there, but I remember there was one round in particular that he was just running away, and he was like not engaging and talking a lot. And let's just be honest here, he couldn't even finish Will Santiago. So, and then what about his fight with GM3, although he won and, they had a good scramble fest. It's just, he constantly puts himself in bad positions, and at minus money, I necessarily don't like that, but hey, he is the dog here, and I do think he's the better fighter, so I'm gonna pick him for the win. But Kevin Holland, man, I think he needs to come out here and really make a statement, man, to keep that value on his name, because his last few performances, man, have been just underwhelming to me, man. He keeps making these stupid decisions based on his ego, based on, what does Dana call him? Big mouth? Like the kid really needs to get his ego in check, because he's kind of wasting away talent, man. And I hope he does that, because Fluffy Hernandez doesn't really have that issue. Fluffy Hernandez's issue is just that he's only got 8 or 9 fights. So, I think that I'll pick Kevin because he's the underdog, but I think it's a close fight. And these guys, Kevin likes to lose position a lot. 1 minute he's got a dude fully mounted, and the next, he's in a guillotine. So I'll go with Evan because I do think he's better, but it's going to be a close fight in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a close fight as well. Both these guys very talented. I mean, you mentioned he's got wins over GM3. Not just GM3. This guy finished Jeff Neal on the regional scene. Y'all should go back and check out that fight between Kevin Holland and Jeff Neal. Unbelievable fight. He's actually been talking a lot about dropping to 70s. You know I don't like that. You remember when Kelvin Gastelum was talking about dropping to 70s before that Weidman fight, and you saw what happened there. So I don't like that, but then you saw the shape he's in, so I know Kevin's in good shape at least. Now with Fluffy Hernandez, I like this guy too. He's a very proud warrior. You know, this is a guy that comes to fight. You saw his fight against Brendan Allen on the regional scene, tore him up, and the UFC fights. I mean, you know, unfortunately, he had to take that vet lesson against Maluko, but the next one against Park. You know, he was getting lit up early, but I got to give the guy a lot of credit. He's very persistent, and his takedown entries are on point. So I do think he's going to take down Kevin Holland here. It's just that when he does take him down, the fight doesn't end there because Kevin Holland's consistently attacking with submissions off his back. We have seen Fluffy get submitted before, so I'm very curious to see how the ground exchanges go on the feet. I think that Fluffy will be the more aggressive guy, but, you know, Kevin's probably the cleaner guy. It's a really tough fight to call. I'm also leaning with Holland just because I've always been more impressed with him as a prospect, but I think this fight's the definition of a pick'em. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Matt the Immortal Brown, he's 22-16, and Miguel Baeza is 8-0. Currently, they got Miguel Baeza minus 147. The comeback on Matt Brown is plus 137. Shaq, this is such a huge step up to go from Hector Aldana to Matt Brown. I mean, when this kid goes to bed at night, you know, he's got to be like, holy shit, I'm fighting Matt Brown. Do you think an 8-0 guy can beat Matt Brown in the UFC?
Man, it's a good fight because, you know, Miguel Baeza is super talented, man. He's like, honestly, the full package. He's a black belt. He can kick. He can punch. I mean, it's just that he hasn't really done it against anybody, you know. But the word on the street is that the kid's a phenom, you know. But he had a very good performance on Contender Series. He actually fought a guy that was like 8 or 9 pounds overweight, and the dude had a significant power edge over him, and he was able to maneuver around it and get the win. And I mean, we seen that, you know, what happens when these guys miss weight by, you know, we saw Jeremy Stevens when he missed weight by, you know, 4, the type of power that he's throwing with. This dude that he fought missed weight by like 8 pounds. So, you know, props to Miguel Baeza. Then I bet him against Hector Aldana, easy money, didn't get touched. So I like Miguel Baeza. Matt Brown, you know, I thought he was retired. Then he came back against Ben Saunders. I mean, he definitely dominated him, but who hasn't dominated Ben Saunders? You know, I mean, you know what Miguel Baeza would do to Ben Saunders? It would be, I mean, let's just be honest here. They got Takashi Sato out here flooring the guy and all type of stuff, man. So I think Ben Saunders should have been retired a long time ago. So I think this is, we're going to really see where Matt Brown is at his career, if he's really in it to be in it, or is he just in it for a paycheck? And, you know, Miguel Baeza, he opened up a bigger favorite than what he is now. And I think that's just based on the athleticism, based on the talent. And Matt Brown, we know that he's got a name. I mean, Miguel was probably watching this kid when he was in middle school, when he was in high school, you know, telling his boys, I want to be like Matt Brown one day, you know, and they probably laughed at him. But, you know, I think I'm going to go with Miguel Baeza in this one, man. I think his physical capabilities are going to be too much for the old weathered Matt Brown. I don't think we really got to see the full scope of him in that fight with Ben Saunders. I mean, Ben Saunders should have retired like 5 years ago. I mean, Ben Saunders should have retired after my boy Peter Sabato, you know, had his leg folded back down there in Germany on that one card. So, you know, I think I'm going to go with Miguel Baeza here. I think he's overpowers him, whether it's with some calf kicks or a body shot or even with a chin shot upstairs. And I think he's got the ground game to the talent to compete with him on the mat as well. It's just a matter of if this becomes, if blood gets drawn and, you know, if this becomes a bloody war, then it's going to be one of those hold your breath moments. But I've seen him in some tough spots, man, against that dude. Granted, it wasn't Matt Brown, but I like the vibe I get from Baeza. So I'm going to go with him here. I'm going to say by second round knockout.
Look, I could be way off with what I'm about to say, and I think this kid's super talented too. It's just, I need to see more, right? Like, you remember when like Diego Sanchez fought Mickey Gall, but that's two grapplers. This is two strikers. It's a little bit different, but sometimes you got to take that vet lesson, and I just don't know. Like you said, how does he respond when he gets hit? Like, he didn't get touched once in that UFC debut, but then again, granted, he ran through that guy exactly how you're supposed to, and it's funny because even Laureano Staropoli and Keenan Song, they had kind of back and forth fights with Hector Aldana until they finished him or won by decision. So that's one way of looking at it. I like the fact that Baeza is he's very clinical out there. He's very professional. You know, he does exactly what he needs to do. His distance is really good. He's a super athlete. It's just he's only 8-0, so he needs so much more seasoning. And you guys know what Matt Brown brings to the table. Y'all been watching him for years. I mean, obviously his Muay Thai game for MMA is fucking great. The kicks, the elbows, the knees, the aggression, everything. You know, this is a guy that he's the only man in MMA history to finish Douglas Lima. He's the first guy to ever defeat Wonderboy Thompson in a fight. So he's used to handing these young prospects their first L's. It's just that he's kind of on the older side. He's retired before. It's a really tough fight for me to call. I could totally see Miguel Baeza come out here and blow him out the water for sure. Like, that's not going to surprise me one bit. You know, fold him up with a liver kick. We know Matt's historically been weak to the body, and to a point where Matt's actually last few fights he's been fighting with his hands down. You know, I'm curious if it's because he's trying to adopt a new boxing style or if it's because he's trying to protect that body. But either way, he's been kind of using a different style lately. So again, I could totally see Miguel chop him down with the calf kicks or hit him to the body, maybe even a head kick, whatever the case may be. But if that doesn't happen, man, I think that Matt will drag him to the deep waters and drown him. Look, I think Miguel's going to come back better no matter what. He's only 8-0 right now. He needs to have this experience. He doesn't know what this is like. This is going to be a really good lesson for the kid. I'm going to slightly lean with Matt Brown here. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got two exciting bantamweight prospects fighting at featherweight, kind of like Azure and Kelleher did. But this time, it's two top 15 guys, Shaq, because Song Yadong, he's 15-4, and he's taking on Marlon Chito Vera, who's 17-5. And currently, they got Song Yadong minus 185. The comeback on Marlon Chito Vera is plus 170. Shaq, it's interesting because on tape, Chito is kind of a hard guy to cap because he can take that whooping up front, but you start to gas out on a guy like Chito Vera, and he will tee off on you. And you actually saw Song Yadong kind of gas out his last fight against Cody Stamann. Now, granted, Chito Vera ain't known for his wrestling. He's more known for his jiu-jitsu and his Muay Thai. How you see this fight going down?
Yeah, Song Yadong was quite the prospect. He kind of lost a little bit of steam off that after that Stamann fight, and you know a lot of people can't forget, man. Cody Stamann, although he's not the most exciting guy in the world, man, he's super technical. He's can wrestle. I mean, he's very very underrated. I mean, this guy got into the top 10 in like 3 fights. So you know, I don't want to necessarily knock Song and come out here and say he's a fraud. I just think that he fought a super underrated guy that doesn't really get enough credit. So, you know, with Chito, man, he's been looking the best he ever has. I mean, he's been out here finishing these guys, like putting them in the dirt. Granted, it's just no one. I feel like I almost say the same thing every fight. Like, it's just against no one. Like, Andre Ewell, I like the kid. He's exciting, but, dude, his footwork shit, his cardio shit. I mean, his chin's questionable. He lost his last fight, but he got lucky. You know, he just hasn't done it against anyone significant. But I love Marlon Vera when he's moving forward, no matter who it's against, man. You know, like you said, he likes to take that whooping and give those guys that false sense of security. Kind of loses a lot of first rounds. But, man, when you think about it, man, he's got so much experience. I think he's got better experience than Song. I mean, he's been in there with John Lineker. He's been in there with Douglas D. Silva. He's been in there with Kelleher. I mean, like, Chito's been tested, man. It's just that Song Yadong, athletically speaking, is, a specimen. The dude can crack early. And Chito's definitely been cracked early, whether it's been against Guido Canetti. He struggled in the first round. But Song Yadong, I don't think he's necessarily going to have to be sprawling takedowns to work on that cardio like how he would against Cody Stamann. But, man, I still got a feeling, man, that I don't want to say Song's chinny or that he gasses, because I don't think that's the case. I just think that, you know, people might have a small misconception of, like, how good he really is. Like, I'm not saying that he's not good. I think he's a top 15 guy. I think both guys are top 15. It's just that, just because he floored Alejandro Perez, doesn't mean that he's like some. Look, Alejandro Perez, I mean, doesn't he get dropped in every single fight? Like, didn't he get dropped 3 times by Sukumthaf, and he got dropped by Eddie Wineland twice. I mean, he got dropped. He's been dropped a lot of times, man. So I think both guys are even. I feel like the line is a little inflated. Now I wouldn't be against saying Song was going to overpower him for a decision, but I think it's going to be a similar situation, man. I think Song is going to be up 2-0 on 2 cards going into the 3rd round. And then Chito Vera will turn up on him and get him out of there in that 3rd, man. I think it's going to be a comeback victory. Chito Vera, I mean, this guy's been I forgot that this fight's at 145, so that kind of does sketch me out a little bit. I kind of feel like he might have done Song a little favor there. But I think that Chito Vera, man, this guy's been out here running 11 miles, 12 miles, been putting in, that boxing has always been a weakness. But, hey, man, he's trying to make an effort. He's trying to get that work in with Jason Parillo, one of the greatest boxing coaches in the history of the sport. I mean, he used to coach BJ Penn, Bisping, Dos Anjos. I mean, he's working with a very good guy. But I'm sure Song's hungry, but I'm gonna take Chito in an upset, man. I'm gonna say Chito by 3rd round TKO.
Yeah, I mean, you bring some valid points. I mean, if we're questioning the chin of Song Yadong or the cardio, I mean, let's put the Cody Stamann fight on the back burner and let's refer back to the time where he was knocked out. And let's refer back to the Vince Morales fight where he didn't have to worry about Vince Morales' takedowns. That was a striking match. And in that 3rd round, shit got sketchy. So I kind of agree with you, man. If Song Yadong can't hurt him bad or get him out of there or just completely outclass him to a point those first 2 rounds, I mean, late 2nd round, early 3rd round, shit's about to get sketchy if you have that chalk on Song Yadong. If he hasn't, dropped him a couple times by then and stuff like that. And Chito Vera is not a guy I like to count out because, I've been rooting for him his whole career. But then, when I finally am like, oh, this might be a bad stylistic matchup for him, then he runs through the guy. So it's like he's such a hard guy to pick against. And I love his story, man. When you think about the fact that when he was training in Ecuador at this gym called 50/50, he was literally, I'm not exaggerating, literally training with cab drivers and stuff among those lines. He didn't have any pro fighters in his gym. He made it to the Ultimate Fighter based off that, and he was 1-2 in the UFC training there. Then he moved to California. Look at the run he's on now. So I do think this is an improving fighter. And if you're sitting here using the fact that he lost to Davey Grant and Marco Beltran against him, you might have another thing coming because this is a completely different guy now. It's just that, athletically speaking, Song Yadong is the superior athlete. He does have crisper hands, but I am happy about the fact that Marlon's not just, sitting at home playing video games, resting on his laurels that, oh, I can get all these comeback finishes. He is having those private sessions with Jason Parillo. He is doing all the right things. He is eating the right foods. His nutrition's completely on point. So this is a very serious athlete that he's determined and he's willing to do what it takes to get the win. So while I do think that Song Yadong can definitely, maybe get the knockout early, if that doesn't happen, this is going to be a very sketchy situation. And I'm not picking against Chito Vera again. I think he is going to finish him late, just like Song Yadong's been finished late before. And yeah, I know Cody Stamann's this great wrestler, and Cody Stamann's a very underrated guy. It's just that Cody actually broke him in my eyes. So we know that indeed.
Let's just be honest here. That 3rd round, Cody was giving him noogies and talking in his ear, bro.
Like, I'm just saying that if things aren't going his way, Song isn't exactly known for being a back and forth kind of guy. It's either he has to dominate you or he dominates you and then gets finished, like what happened in that fight. And dude, I've seen him lose decisions to guys with 5-3 records. So
between you and me, he's a lot older than what they say.
It's funny, man, that you say that because it's like one fight he'll be 19, next fight he's 22, next fight he's 26, so I don't really know how old the guy is. I do think he's a specimen for sure, and he's very, very talented, and he might win this fight. He is the rightful favorite. It's just with Chito Vera, there's some intangible elements to his fights, and he finds a way to come back. He takes that ass whooping up front and comes back, and I think he's going to do it again. So I'm going with Marlon Chito Vera, Ecuador's own. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Eryk, your boy Anders, he's 13-4, and Krzysztof Jotko is 21-4. Currently, they got Krzysztof Jotko -142. The comeback on Eryk, your boy Anders, is +132. Remember when they were trying to make Krzysztof Jotko marketable and they called him Chris Jotko after that Tamden McCrory knockout. And, then he beat Talis Latis, I believe, in Brazil. And it was like, oh, shit, this is our new prospect. And then shit has not been the same after that Dave Branch fight. And that was a very close fight that arguably could have gone either way. But I don't really care about where they scored it. What I care about is why was Krzysztof, when he's getting pinned up against the fence and he's putting his hands up, like, it's like, dude, like, I think he lost it mentally. He got ahead of himself a bit. And then in that fight with Uriah Hall, we could sit here and talk about how he was teeing off on Uriah Hall. Since when is Krzysztof known for teeing off on anybody? He's a point fighter. He got away from what got him to the dance, got knocked out. And then in that Brad Tavares fight, he was completely lost. I'm glad they gave him a couple rebounds, but let's be honest, Amadowski and Marc-Andre Barrio, they're 0-2 and 0-3 in the UFC. What'd you say?
Marc-Andre Barrio.
Yeah, I mean, guys, they're 0-5 combined in the UFC, so of course he got those wins. I don't know, man. What do you think about him and Eryk, your boy Anders?
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup, man, because I don't want to say I've always shitted or picked against Eryk. It's just I've always felt like, I've basically described him as a football, a big middleweight trying to fight like a bantamweight. It's like, we want him to go out there and be the big bully and hurt these guys. And I just think that athletically, he's not the athlete that everyone thought he was when he first came into the UFC. I still think he's a solid fighter, average level, just a tough guy that'll stand in that pocket and move forward. But I honestly thought he lost his last fight to GM3. I thought he lost the second and third rounds. He did a big chicken dance at the end of the third round. I think I don't want to say he's better at 205s because, he has took L's up there too. But, the Elias fight, for example, he loses that first round just by Elias running circles around him, and he's sloppy and he's just missing the shots and he's not making adjustments, kind of fighting like a meathead. And then, all of a sudden he finally does get in distance and he cracks him and he's got Elias all hurt and, flailing all over the place. And it's like, let's come out here and follow up on that, Eryk, and let's come out here and put him away in this third round or at least beat his ass. And then it's just like, he just stops throwing and it's just like, dude, what is going on here, bro? Like, be the aggressive football player, bro. Go after him, So, man, I think Eryk's hit his ceiling. I think that he's a tough guy. He'll come to fight. He ain't a quitter by any means. But I truly do believe that, that 3-fight L streak, I'm not going to say that's past Jotko because I don't ever see him necessarily getting back into the top 15. But I think just from a talent perspective, that Krzysztof Jotko, at least when he was at his best or on his way up, I mean, bro, Eryk couldn't even breathe his air, in my opinion. Like, I think that Krzysztof Jotko is capable of a lot more than Eryk Anders. He's got better movement. He's got better smarts, better tactics. He knows, like when he was on his come up, man, he knows how to win those decisions, knows how to tie guys up and stall and move and dance. And then eventually start doing his breakdance after we used to love this guy because, all his fights, everyone would think he would lose. And then they would say 30-27 Jotko, you know what I'm saying? Because they didn't understand what he was doing. And I think that a similar thing's probably going to happen here, man. I know that Eryk's the underdog and Krzysztof, I will say if Krzysztof has anything not going for him is that he kind of has a bad habit of leaving his chin in the air. But from what I understand during that 3-fight L streak, at least around the Tavares time, was he had a bad hand injury, man. Like he had to have like multiple hand surgeries that he had going on, and he said he kind of just lost his confidence in throwing his left hand. I think he also had a foot injury as well, so he couldn't really like throw that left kick. And he had just moved to Florida, and he bought a house, and he's kind of putting himself in a position that I guess like on the outside of things maybe he wasn't ready for. He got married and he kind of put a lot of pressure on himself, but hey, he got two opportunities to come back and work the kinks out. And I truly believe that just talent caliber wise that he's on a different level than Eryk Anders. But hey, man, we'll see. Eryk can capitalize on his chin in the air, but I just think Krzysztof is going to be frustrating him with his side to side movement, clinching him up here and there. Eryk is a little stronger, but he just doesn't fight like it. Like GM3, I know GM3 is underrated, but I truly believe that GM3 boxed him up in the second and third rounds. I know Eryk moved forward, and GM3's got two right feet. He's slow. He, doesn't move. But I think Krzysztof Jotko is going to capitalize on that, frustrate him, and breakdance for a decision. It might be controversial. It might not be, but I see Krzysztof Jotko breakdancing on tonight.
Yeah, man, it's a tough one for me to call because we already mentioned, both guys are kind of inconsistent, but it's like Eryk is consistent in his inconsistency. It's not like we see a different version of Anders. It's the same version. It's just if you're a certain level opponent, he'll beat you. If not, he won't. Whereas Jocko, like some of those performances, like it's like not the point fighter that we once loved. But speaking of point fighters, Eryk has a shitty history with point fighters. You guys remember the Machida fight? Y'all remember the Elias fight? Both split decision losses. And I actually spoke to Eryk and wanted to know his thoughts on this because this is going to be the third time. Is third time going to be the charm, or is it going to be 3 strikes and you're out? Because it's like this style has given him problems in the past, but he's actually under the impression that Jocko is more aggressive than guys like Elias and Machida. He thinks that's going to give him the openings he needs. Now, I agree in the sense that it could be a fight where, Eryk's chasing Jocko all over the place, and, if there was a crowd, they could be booing. But I really feel like Jocko doesn't have the same confidence he once had, and that's such a key component here. And I do think somewhere along the way, even if it comes down to a slow start or something like that, I mean, if it gets off to a slow start, I think Anders is going to touch the chin of Jocko, and I think he might put him down. So I think it should kind of be a pick 'em. So I'm leaning towards the dog odds. I'm going to say that Eryk does touch the chin of Kris Jocko and puts him down. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got the featherweight debut of Edson Jr. Barboza. He's 20-8. And Dan Ige is 13-2. Currently, they got Edson Barboza minus 140. The comeback on Dan Ige is plus 130. Well, Shaq, I mean, when I first heard about this matchup, I was like, oh my God, why is Edson Barboza dropping to 145? But then you look into it. I talked to actually some people in the lightweight division, and they were saying that he actually doesn't even cut that much weight to make 55. So this actually made a little bit of sense for him. And look, man, he's taking on the streaking Dan Ige. Dan's on a nice win streak. He's been doing his thing. This is the biggest fight of his life. Is Ige ready to rise to the occasion against Edson Barboza?
Yeah, I think Edson made a good move, man. I think that at 55s, he was just kind of not hitting a plateau, but it just, he wasn't. Why not kind of try to rejuvenate your career, man? You just lost to Felder. You got knocked out against Gaethje. I mean, he's pretty much lost to everyone in the top 5, 6, 7, for the most part, except Pettis. Pettis not even ranked? So, and Dustin's his teammate, so they're probably not going to fight. So, I think he made a good move, man. Why not try to test yourself? And one thing Edson's always struggled with was his cardio, man. So I feel like at 145, this is going to force him to get his ass up in the morning, put on those running shoes, and put on that sweatsuit and start hitting the track, man. Get this weight off, man. And him doing those long distance runs. I think Phil DeRue and him, I think he says Edson's been doing long distance runs, man, which is man, those long distance runs, they're tough, man. They're tough on the legs, but man, they pay off dividends, man, in the late rounds, which is something that he's always struggled with, man. Personally, I like Dan Ige. I think he's rebounded very well from his first fight against Julio Arce, but I personally think that there's a chance that this line could be wider, and I like Dan Ige, but I don't want to say he's a fraud or this and that, but I truly think he's an expendable top 15 guy. As in, I don't really think that he's he's number 15, obviously, but I'm saying that, like, I'm not convinced and I hate using analogies like this, but I'm not convinced he can beat some of the guys outside of the top 15 is what I'm getting at. I think he's had a good run, some, favorable matchups. Like, let's just be honest here. Jordan Griffin, I like the kid, but, Jordan Griffin can't stuff a takedown. Danny Henry, I like the kid, but, you think he's ever going to touch the top 15 or the top 20 or the top 30?
No.
Kevin Aguilar, had a great record, but if you guys go back to go back to our podcast before Kevin Aguilar's last fight, I specifically said, yes, he might be 18-1, 18-2, or whatever the hell he is. But mark my words, in 2 to 3 years, we're going to be saying he's 18-6. I think that Kevin Aguilar blocks punches with his face. I think that, a fighter like him has a very short shelf life. And I don't want to say it was perfect place, perfect time, but I just think that Ige is good enough to beat guys like that. But, bro, his Mirsad Bektik fight, Mirsad Bektik, like I mentioned earlier, is mentally challenged. I think that fight was super close. I thought Ige, did enough to scrape it out, but the third round, it could have went either way. He has a similar pattern of kind of winning the first round against these guys that aren't even in the same stratosphere as Edson Barboza, even on Edson's worst day. You know what I'm saying? Like, even the Edson that fought Kevin Lee, he still landed a spinning head kick that almost knocked him out. You know what I'm saying? I just think this is a possible mismatch. I think that Ige's on a great run, but I think that people, if they're saying Edson's, done and Edson's this and that, he fought Paul Felder tooth and nail. Paul Felder's number 6 in the rankings. I bet on Felder. It was a great fight. It could have went either way, but Felder's calves got busted up. He had to walk on crutches in the airport. You fight. I don't think Ige can handle that type of damage, man. And the reason I say that is what happened when he fought Julio Arce. He got completely shut down. But then, he got these matchups where he's still losing rounds to these guys like Jordan Griffin and Mirsad Bektik and Kevin Aguilar. He still was flopping to his back in all those fights. So I think that Edson Barboza, honestly, is about to come out here and have a great 145-pound debut. I think the fact that he's been working on that cardio, just go to his IG and see that work he's been putting in with Phil Daru, who's coached world champions like Dustin Poirier, number one contenders like Jorge Masvidal, and Amanda Nunes and plenty other great fighters, man. I think it's going to pay off dividends here. I think he knocks Dan Ige out either with his third leg kick TKO, a vicious body kick, a spin. I think Edson Barboza adds to his vicious highlight reel of KOs.
Yeah, look, if Edson was making his featherweight debut against Sodiq Yusuff or Calvin Cade or Yair Rodriguez, Korean Zombie, something like that, we'd be having an entirely different conversation. But look, I respect Dan Ige, but guys, come on. Barboza is levels above Ige in the skill department. And the only reason this fight's lying close is due to questions about Barboza's cut to featherweight. The reality is Barboza successfully made 145 pounds this morning and looked pretty damn healthy to me. So my theory on the weight cut is Barboza had to run extra miles, be even stricter on his diet, which in turn is going to aid him in this fight. Because if you're acting like Ige is the guy with the superior cardio, Ige is the guy that gasses out in round 2 every single fight. And I think he's going to fade massively if he can't get Barboza out of there early. So what I think is going to happen here is, look, Barboza is going to have a massive speed advantage, and he's going to light him up with the kicks, the fast combinations throughout the fight. And look, there's always questions about Barboza's chin, but again, the reality here is that he's only been knocked out twice, and it's by 2 champions. We're talking about current UFC champion Justin Gaethje and former WEC champion Jamie Varner. Edson has fought and beat a much higher level of competition, and look, I think he's going to outstrike Ige en route to a knockout or decision win. And it's kind of funny, people can refer to this Khabib and Kevin Lee fight. It's do you know what Khabib and Kevin Lee would do to Dan Ige? They'd literally throw him out of the octagon, man.
Firstly, Ige would never get those fights. They're in different weight classes, but he will never get that type of caliber fight, is what I'm saying. This is his only one. You know what I'm saying? He's got a good connection here. But if you think he can wrestle like Kevin Lee and Khabib,
he's nowhere near the size of a Kevin Lee or a Khabib. Look, I know people are kind of down on Kevin Lee right now. Yeah, maybe we can be down on him in the top 5 sense, but Kevin Lee is a fucking established top 10 guy. Remember what happened when Kevin Lee took a step down against Gregor Gillespie? He absolutely fucking killed him. Like, do you remember what happened when Edson Barboza took a step down with, and I say step down in quotes, with Dan Hooker, who's a top 10 guy, with Beneil Dariush, who's a perennial top 15 guy? He absolutely murked these guys. So just because he's losing to champs and top 5 guys doesn't mean he's going to come out here and lose to Ige. Now, look, if Ige comes out here, puts him down, chokes him out, does the whole bit, I'm going to clap for him. I'm going to be happy for the guy, but I don't see it happening, man. I think there's levels to this. I think Edson's in a different class. I think Ige's going to come back better. But I think tonight's going to be Edson Barboza's night in Jacksonville, Florida. And I do have him putting on a very impressive performance against Dan Ige. Co-main event of the evening in the strawweight division. We got Claudia Gadelha. She's 17-4. And Angela Overhill is 12-7. Currently, they got Claudia Gadelha minus 215. The comeback on Angela Hill is plus 195. Well, Shaq, I mean, look, historically speaking, anytime Angela Hill steps up in the top 15, she loses. But Claudia Gadelha, a lot of people seem to think that she's on a bit of a decline. And, you know, she has had some hit or miss performances. I personally thought her last one against Randa was one of the best of her career. But I do have to say this. So the criticism about Claudia gassing, it's very true. And in her last fight, she didn't gas. But there's one major factor why she didn't gas. There was zero grappling in that fight. They basically stood and had a very patient fight for 3 straight rounds. Now, if she comes out here and gets the takedowns, I do think she's going to be able to take down Hill. And I think there's a possibility she even comes out here and submits Hill. What I'd be worried about if I had money on Claudia would be is if she does take down Hill in that first round, dominates her, but Hill's able to somehow survive, get to the second, that's where things get interesting because, you know, even though Hill might be a step below, her striking is pretty damn good for that weight class standards. And just in terms of the volume, she does throw more volume than Claudia Gadelha. So if she can get off on some calf kicks, start mixing in some combos after taking that early ass whooping up front, that's where things get interesting. But at the end of the day, Shaq, I do think Claudia Gadelha is going to play this smart. She's got good people behind her now. She says she's in the best place of her career. I think she's going to come out here, take down Angela Hill, pass the guard, and submit her. So I'm going with Claudia Gadelha via submission here, Shaq.
Yeah, man, that's a good take. I think Hill's been making somewhat improvements, but I think she also took a step down in competition from the Yan Chaonans and even the Randas, even the Cortney Casey's. I think that she fought Hannah Cyphers, who, I like Hannah's story, former NFC vet. I mean, Wild Bills vet right there, you know what I'm saying? But Hannah Cyphers, I mean, I'm not gonna say too much, but y'all know what I'm getting at. And Carnelossi, a debutant who's like 5'1", and Luma, who's got like 6 fights, and Hill still lost a round in that fight. So, I think Hill, if she's fighting people on that level, yeah, she can kind of clean up house a little bit. But, I think now, I don't want to say it's back to reality, but I think honestly, she does. Hill's a gamer. She'll come to fight. She comes with that good pace. She comes with a hard pace. So yeah, I mean, she could come out here and possibly threaten Gadelha's cardio. But I honestly feel like it's one of those cases where I don't want to compare it to like a Gaethje Ferguson, but I think Gadelha's power, man, is really going to stop her in her tracks. I've seen Hill at times wobble in some of these fights, like Yan Chaonan, like Randa Marcos, I've seen her wobble, Courtney Casey as well. Like all those girls wobbled her. Androv, I know Androv beat Gadelha as well, but, the only way I see Hill even having a chance in this fight is she comes out with a disciplined calf kick game. That's one thing I noticed Gadelha doesn't like is the calf kicks. I mean, they kind of, she kind of makes, when Calvin starts getting calf kicked, those faces that he makes, it's like, God damn it, my weakness. But, I think it's one of those similar things like that. If she can come out here with a disciplined calf kick game, then maybe. But I honestly think that even in the boxing, Gadelha can take her. And I just think that just with her smarts, the new team behind her, there's no need to come out here and take this girl down. I think you can stand up with her for 3 rounds as well and still get the win with your power, with your pace, land the bigger shots, get up to that 2-0 lead. And then just, if you want to coast that third round like you have many times before. But I just don't think Angela Hill's on this level yet. I mean, I thought the Yan Xiaonan fight should have been 30-27 if Yan didn't put herself in that triangle. And it's just every time she fights, someone relevant, someone legit. I mean, she usually loses, and we're gonna really see if she's turned this corner like a lot of people think she has. But I don't think so. I think that she just took in. She's fought Hannah Cyphers, Kanalosi, and Lumbuki. So I'm gonna go with Claudia Gadelha by 30-27 decision on all three cards.
Main event of the evening in the heavyweight division. We got Alistair the Reem Overeem. He's 45-18, and Walt the Big Ticket Harris is 13-7. Currently, they got Walt Harris minus 135, and Alistair Overeem is plus 125. I know it says 13-7. That's kind of misleading because, the Arlovsky win is not on his record, and the Mark Godbeer DQ. I mean, he beat that guy's ass, and it's counted as a loss. So the record's a little bit misleading on Walt, but man, I could sit here and give technical analysis and do the whole bit. I feel like y'all can check out some other podcasts and hear how this fight's going to go in terms of how they match up. I mean, y'all know the deal. Reem's probably the more skilled guy. Reem has an edge on the mat as well. Hopefully, for his sake, he looks to take it down. But Walt Harris actually has turned a corner, in my opinion, because at one point in his career, it was like a thing where it was like, Walt, please throw, right? But now I feel like he's been putting things together. And I know people were mentioning that Werdum fight, but a couple years ago when Werdum takes guys down, I mean, he's passing your guard and submitting you. He also submitted Overeem in the first round too back in the day. So I don't hold that against Walt Harris. But look, as far as his matchup is concerned, I want to break it down stylistically, but I also want to say, if the universe doesn't allow Walt Harris to get this win, that'll just be an absolutely disgusting thing. Come on, there's got to be justice in this world. Let this man come out here and knock Alistair Overeem's chin into the fifth row, which has already happened 17 times prior, and let him have that beautiful moment inside the octagon. Look, I got Walt Harris via vicious knockout. I think he is going to have that moment. I think he will touch the chin of Overeem, and as long as he stays composed, doesn't fight too emotionally, has his head in the game, I think he does have the proper technique and power to put away a guy like Overeem. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do, Shaq. I got Walt Harris here via vicious knockout.
Yeah, Walt Harris, before this all went down, was looking the best he ever had. Got that win over Arlovsky. Arlovsky's still a tough fight. Knocked out Alexei Olenek in 12 seconds, played that very beautifully with the flying knee. And, now he's back. And Overeem, the Overeem's super technical, but progressively, man, I'm noticing that Overeem, he was already keeping things safe, when he kind of has a little bit of rejuvenation for a little bit, and he'll get a couple wins. But now, man, I think he's so old to the point where like he can't really like get in any exchanges. He's keeping everything close to the vest. He's looking to tie up more and more, get the foot sweeps like how he got on Pavlovich. But I truly think that, I'm not saying, they're not going to rematch, but I truly think that Pavlovich was just overwhelmed by the fact that he was fighting Alistair Overeem in his UFC debut. I mean, not too many people have a task like that, you know what I'm saying? So I think that Overeem, his margin for error is like as small as it gets, man. Look at his last fight. And speaking of his last fight, I saw an interview earlier this week saying that, or Overeem said that he got cheated out of a win, his last fight.
What?
I was like, wait, what?
Hold on. But he also said Stipe tapped, so,
Yeah, I'm just referring to the Jairzinho fight. He said that he wasn't out and he got up right away and the fight shouldn't have been stopped, So, look, he did get right away, but, bro, your lip was, like, fucking hanging.
Hey, he got up right away. He was facing the other direction.
Like, you got up and you did the TJ, You remember when TJ fought Dodson?
Remember the end of round one of TJ and Cody won?
Yeah, he did the stinky leg for a little bit there, man. So I think Overeem's a little bit of denial. He's saying shit like he said he's still got 6 to 7 years left in the sport, and I'm just like, Alistair, bro, you fight 6, 7 more years, bro. I don't know how many more KO losses that's gonna be, but I think this is Walt Harris's night. The only thing that worries me a little bit is that he did come in this fight a little bit heavy. He usually weighs in like upper 250s. This time he came at damn near at the limit. So maybe he was eating a little bit extra in the meantime. I mean, I do see it probably being a little slow fight at the beginning just because Overeem is not going to give him much to go off on. But I think his wrestling has improved over the years. I mean, it's improved to the point where he's hitting Arlovsky with doubles, man. So, and Arlovsky's a hard guy to take down. So I think that Walt Harris, this is going to be his night. I think it's going to start slow, but I think at some point in that third, fourth round, Reem's going to do what he does, back into the fence and shell up, and Walt Harris will start to tee off on him, and eventually that KO blow will come. I could see why one would want to take the shot on Reem. I mean, you know, he is the better fighter. It's just he's the better skilled fighter. I mean, but he's the better skilled fighter than a lot of guys that he got knocked out against. You know what I'm saying? Rothwell, Bigfoot, Travis Brown. I mean, I could say a bunch.
Rosenstrike.
Rosenstrike. I mean, he's better than pretty much everyone he loses to. So I'm gonna go with Walt Harris to get a fourth round knockout over Alistair Overeem. Maybe he comes. Maybe it's a little bit of a comeback winner of some sorts. But I think this will be Walt Harris's night, and I think the universe would be a fucked up place if he didn't win.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Florida?
My fight to watch is going to be Song Yadong versus Chito Vera, man. I mean, this is a pivotal fight in that top 15 because Song, you know, he's a big favorite again, and he kind of, I don't want to say he got exposed because I think he fought an underrated guy, but I mean, I actually just took a look at the numbers in that fight, man. I mean, stats don't tell the full story, but I mean, when you look at the stats in that fight, it was absolutely one-sided. But I think he needs this win just to get that aura back. He needs this win just to, you know, I know they want to have him in that Chinese market along with Wiley Zhang and, you know, and Yan Xiaonan and all those other Chinese athletes. I think he really needs this win to stay on that path. And Vera, man, if he can come out here and like finish Song Yadong or like put him in the ground like how he does all his other opponents, man, that would be a huge statement. Then Jimmy Rivera could do no longer running. You know, he would have to take the fight. You know, or Chito would get to call his shot, get his pick of his next fight, man. That means he would have turned the corner to a point where, I mean, if he finishes Song Yadong, that would be super impressive. So that's my fight of the night.
And my fight to watch is Matt Brown versus Miguel Baeza. I mean, anytime Matt Brown has a fight on the card, it's always one to watch. But now he's taking on an undefeated young prospect that represents the new generation. And it's funny because I had Matt Brown half the battle a long-ass time ago. And I asked him what his opinion was of this next generation of fighters. And he thought this whole next gen of fighters thing was total bullshit. He's like, well, they have some kind of techniques that I've never seen before. So, you know, that's like his mentality. He doesn't think this kid brings anything he's never seen. So I'm really curious to see if that's the case. And with Miguel, I mean, like I said, he's probably going to bed at night knowing, hey, I got to fight Matt motherfucking Brown. So for that reason, Matt the Immortal Brown versus Miguel Baeza is my fight to watch. Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC Florida?
My fighter to watch is gonna be Edson Barboza, man. He's making that 145 pound debut. I think that this division, I don't want to say it's lacking sauce because it's a lot of great fighters, but man, hey, if you throw Edson in the mix with that, man, if he comes out here and gets a first round, second round stoppage or a vicious beatdown, I mean, don't be shocked when they start throwing him in there with Calvin and when they start throwing him in there with Sadiq and you know, Emmett and these guys, man. I really want to see Edson, how he looks in this fight. And this guy is one of the best KO artists the sport has ever seen. I mean, I know you remember that day when he landed that spinning head kick on Terry Edom. I mean, pretty much the entire world jumped out of their seat and was like, "Oh my God, this guy's going to be a future champion." Now he didn't live up to the expectations, but he still had a great career. And I think that at this new weight class, it could possibly give him life. So I'm Edson Barboza is my fighter to watch.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's been top 10 his entire career. So no doubt about it. For me, look, my fighter to watch is Walt Harris. Look, all eyes are on him. And I truly believe that if he gets this moment, comes out here, gets this knockout win, has that incredible moment inside the octagon, I mean, not only is it going to be a feel-good time for all fans, but like, I think he might actually become a star, and it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, the guy, everyone loves the heavyweights. This guy's got a highlight reel of knockouts, and if he can add a really impressive one live on ESPN when the whole world is watching, I think we could be looking at Walt Harris becoming a household name. So Walt Harris is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down tonight in Florida. They can follow you on Twitter at MMAGenius05. They can follow you on Instagram at ShaqBFP. They can follow me on Twitter at BestFightPicks or on Instagram at Best Fight Picks Official. We now have an Instagram for the podcast at Half the Battle Pod, so make sure you follow all that. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, all the places where we are available. Make sure you get our bets at bestfightpicks.com. Use that promo code SHAQ50 for 50% off Shaq's bets. Use my promo code DAN25 for 25% off mine. Use our combined promo code 2020 for 20% off our VIP bets. Truly appreciate your support. BestFightPicks.com. We will be back for the next card. I believe it's Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns. Really look forward to that. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.